Up a day, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, with another episode of the Innovate Guam podcast. The podcast where we look at all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. My podcasts drop the beginning of every week. Also, look for my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News the first and third Fridays of each month. My guest for today's podcast is a true data evangelist. He's had a successful career as a real estate professional, and it's very interesting. He's had a career in real estate thriving at the inflection point of where innovation, strategy, and execution happen in the real estate industry. Very interesting place. He's currently the president of Pinpoint. Guam is a leading real estate data company, and its mission is to help customers make informed decisions on real property purchases. He is the host of the Data Points podcast, where he dives into conversations with local real estate professionals about the challenges and opportunities about Guam's housing market. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Mr. Ryan Mummert. All right, how you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you asking to be on the podcast. I'm looking forward to talking
Well,
today.
well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We have a tradition here on the IG podcast. We kind of start with some icebreaker questions, kind of get an idea about where your head is at in terms of innovation and technology. So, first question I want to start off with is what does innovation mean to you?
Well, at its root, and this is something that everybody who works with me and for me knows that my first question is why? Why do we do things the way that we do them? And then from that comes the question, can we do it better? And we're always looking to improve and grow, and that's just the cycle of everything. So in life, we're always trying to innovate to improve our experience, to improve the things that we do and that bring value to the world. So that's what I think innovation is.
All right. So tell me what's your favorite piece of technology or your favorite innovation?
God, I want to join the chorus and say AI, right? But I also want
Mm,
I want I want to zag too because I mean there's so much going on in technology today. And just the world in the way that we're advancing. So it's really hard to just put it down, but I have to say that the way things are exponentially growing with AI is just amazing to me. And I think if you're not using AI or learning how to use it, it's going to be to your significant disadvantage because all business processes, all forward thinking is now incorporating those processes and the understanding that there is this machine that follows instructions 100% of the time, exactly as you say it. And for me, that reliability, that consistency, we're always talking about high trust, high performers, high trust, low performers, that mix. This is a machine and it performs
yes.
as well as a human with 120 IQ and and you can make an unlimited amount of them as much as you can power, I guess, right? So for me, that is mind blowing. And then also the idea that now AI is conceptualizing things that we can't even conceptualize because of the way it thinks is different from the way we think, structurally, holistically, in terms of motivations, goals, selflessness, desires, emotion, all that jumble of things that makes our experience beautiful is now being reimagined at a different level that we can't even envision. So for me, my mind blows every time I think about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me about an innovation or a piece of technology that you thought was surprising, i.e., when it first came out, maybe it looked a little strange, or it's like, man, this is stupid, but now you can't live without.
God. Um, that's a tough one, right? Um, for me, I was very suspicious early on. I was born in the 70s. I'm dating myself. But I'm in that generation that was I'm in the middle of like when technology started to be adopted. Like when I was like 16, 17 years old, internet popped up, right? When I was 19, 20, social media came on the scene with various things. So I've been in the analog and digital world. And I think for me, the cloud has been one of the most significant things that I didn't really think much of and how significant it would be. But just the way the cloud has changed the computing experience and changed the way that we've worked, specifically for the business that I started with in 2017, Title Guarantee. We were very paper-based, and quickly I saw that we need to leverage any digital technologies that we could just to realize these efficiencies. And the cloud was significant in that to create virtual machines, to create like access anywhere, remote online closings. So we were going to the cloud right as pandemic hit. And so we're ready. Like when pandemic hit, it's like, oh wow, we're set up for this. This is great. We went to virtual right away, remote online signings right away. So the cloud, I think, has been significant. That's something that I kind of took for granted, but now it's just so significant and so ingrained in everything that we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Ryan, you're really a tech guy and a data guy, and over at Pinpoint, you all use technology as kind of a lever in delivering real estate market solutions, right? So, can you tell me a little bit about your digital portal called RealFacts?
Sure. So the root of my experience is selling real estate. I started out as a mortgage broker in Menlo Park in California in the early aughts, right? And so when I was there, the title and escrow companies would always come in and they'd have these databases of property owners and records that you can, basically they give you a list. You send out a bunch of postcards. Postcards come back. They do business with you, right? Or you get your shot. And so when I came to Guam, I moved back home and I wanted to transact in the way that I was used to transacting, and that infrastructure didn't exist here at all. So I started doing it manually and analog, and it was very successful for me. But when I came to Title Guarantee, we quickly realized that if I could scale this, it would build an origination pipeline for us. So what we did is Title Guarantee has been in existence since 1963. So we have all these records that we scanned and indexed and all these things. So what we did is we took those records and we made them into a database. And now we use that database to do exactly that, to verify property records, to to verify information about the property. And so when we did that, what happened was people started asking us all these questions about what owners, how to get the documents, and just my natural like real estate background. I want to solve the problems, I want to facilitate. So we said, well, what if we just did this at scale? We went to whatever data we could source, whether we're collecting ourselves, whether we're sourcing it from the government, or whether we're sourcing it from interested stakeholders who wanted to collaborate with us. We started collecting all that data. And so right around this time, we really need a tax map here. Guam doesn't have a tax map, or we do, but it's horrible. And so, the state of procurement is really difficult to build any kind of technology into the government structure. And I'm in the real estate industry, and all these stakeholders need all this information. So we figured if we take a product and we put all this data, we aggregate all this data together and we put it out there, it will be invaluable to anyone who transacts real estate. And so in that, the first question is veracity. Okay, I put a portal out there. How does everybody know that it's valid, the data is good? And so how you know it's valid and it's good is we're from the title industry, we're from the real estate industry. Our business is to verify and check records. So that is our expertise. And then in terms of what we do, we have the most skilled professionals in terms of interpreting maps, in terms of solving complex title and legal issues, in terms of fixing complex zoning issues. All that we have this warehouse of expertise here because that's what we do all day. We solve real estate problems so we can transact. So what if we did that digitally and we invited the public to see all this information in the portal? So it's all out there, and then they can come and get more granular with us, or they can go to the market and go to professionals. But at least when they go to the professionals, it takes the legwork out of the professionals who then have to go to all these government sources. So we went to all the professionals and all the stakeholders and said, hey, we have really good data here, right? It's verified. We're professionals. We have people at land management every day. We have people at DRT every day. We coordinate with all the government associations. There is a degree of expertise here. How do we bring that to the market? And that's the portal. So now we're partnering with all the stakeholders and we're leveraging that expertise, but to bring veracity to the market. Now that the stakeholders have bought in, we can invite the public to come in. And now that all the stakeholders agree on the information and how it should be presented and how it accurately represents the information as the user experience, meaning the people with boots on the ground are actually doing the building, the consuming, all the legwork, then we can go to the government and say, hey, this is how we want it. This is how it should look. You should use it too, right? Or build something similar so we can communicate. So that was effectively our vision. And we've always had a use case for it because we have a natural customer in the businesses that we support. And so now we're going to the community at large saying, hey, this is real and this is significant for Guam because no one cares about this, but you should. And we care about it. And the reason why we care about it, because it's key to solving, the data is key to solving a lot of the intrinsic issues that prevent us from having attainable housing, prevent us from attracting outside investment, prevents us from understanding where the best places to build are, what the best product mix is, to figure out what the demand is, to really attract outside investment. If you're not looking at the data, then how do you know any of that? And competitively, all these other markets are looking at the data and you're not because you have no infrastructure or apparatus for that data. Or you do, but it's so disjointed. The people who are collecting it don't even know, it's so compartmentalized, don't even know what everybody else is doing. So now the government is doing a better job in communicating and collaborating and sharing resources, and the cloud has a lot to do with that. And the connectivity that's been enacted by that technology. But ultimately, it's going to take us. It's going to take the private industry. We can't go to the government and say, hey, solve our problem. We have to demand. We say, hey, this is how we're going to solve our problem. This is the way we demand our problem be fixed. And we're in charge, right?
I tell
Last time
you,
I
I
checked.
love that. I love that about the way that you all took charge and took the initiative of your own problem set, right? Yes, this maybe should be out there and the government should kind of own this, but in the absence of it, let's go ahead and solve our own issue or whatever. So let me ask a follow-up question. Um, how does that compare to like other places, like back in the States and California and stuff, like where you came from? Does the government have a lot of these online accesses, or is it the same kind of deal? It's industry kind of leading the way and taking the initiative.
Well, I think it just depends on population base and it's different from municipality to municipality, state to state. I know certain places have highly developed infrastructure. Certain places need private parties to come to the market like this. Most places have a tax map, right? A basic place where you can click and see who owns the property and basic information like the size of the property and like the tax assessment. That doesn't exist here. Nothing digitally exists here, or if it does, it works poorly, or it doesn't work at all. And then even the
One
cycle of
unique
building,
problem.
right? But even the cycle of building, Rob, in building technology, the government can't move at the speed it needs to. So it's better just to outsource. But what the government needs to control is the data. So what's happening now is that the government, as I understand it, they're application focused, meaning, hey, can you build me this box that does all these things for me? And so the software developer comes in and builds the box and they put all this data in the box. But the thing is, the software developer controls the data. So any data that you put into this box, if you want to get it out, the developer is going to come and say, oh, we'll get that for you. You can search it manually one by one, but if you want to scale it, there's a fee. And so to report, and here's this, right? But I think the government should aggregate and manage its own data. And even if that's an outsourced thing or the collection thing, but the government should control the data and then base applications and feed the data into those applications that they build to interpret the data for them. And
Okay.
that's a lot more cost-effective approach than building some application that's going to work for like say like financial management, right? Okay, financial management, but every time you need a financial management report, how much does it cost to run the report? Whereas if you just have all the data and you feed the data into some kind of system, okay, that's great. The system produces the output. But I feed it into AI, generative AI, it automates, right? It spits out the product that I expect as long as I feed in good data. And so I think the government should focus on collecting, aggregating, and leveraging good data.
Standing. So here's a layman's processing of kind of what RealFacts does for you. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I picture this as like Zillow on steroids. Would that be a good way to describe RealFacts, Zillow on steroids?
No, not yet, because it's not monetized in that way, right? This is right now, Real Facts is it's developed primarily to support stakeholders, right? And these stakeholders, say like the realtors, the Guam Association of Realtors is our partner in Real Facts, and we think it's important to partner with stakeholders like that because it lends to the veracity, it lends to the authenticity, it lends to the integrity of the product because it's backed by trade associations, right? So we want the Appeals Board, Bar Association, all those guys to come in and be using the system, right? We invite you to, and in fact, we've had those conversations. But with that, we want these professionals to be able to represent that they trust this data and relay that to the third parties that they represent, right? And have those third parties they represent be able to reference that data. So on a limited set, we're not incorporating real estate sales or anything like that into the model right now. Right now, it's just simply a place to log in and check the information on the property, see if the zoning's correct, order title reports, order research, order utility verifications, order any governmental process that you would be interested in doing that's relative to land, like getting your real property appraised or assessed, hiring a consultant, finding a professional engineer. We want Real Facts to be the place where the public goes to find those people, right? And we
Yeah,
think with that, that will facilitate better transactions on Guam, right? We don't want to be your realtor. We don't want to be your professional like lawyer, but we want to connect you to people who have access to good data and know what to do with it. And we're very cautious in choosing the partners that we connect with to refer out to the public because there's really no one taking care of the public right now. I mean, the realtors are they have their trade, but no one there's professionals out there, but it's so hard to get a professional engineer right now. It's so hard to get a surveyor right now. It's so hard to get all these services that are being consumed by the buildup. So now if you're an individual, you're crowded out of the market, you can't get a survey, how are you going to get information? Well, come to us and we can help. And not just Real Facts, the portal, but Pinpoint. We want to connect you to these valuable resources, this valuable information so you can make informed decisions. Because believe me, the stakeholders want you to make informed decisions. They want you to have accurate information. They want, and especially the realtors. I heard this story at a construction roundtable about a realtor selling somebody down the river. That's not true. We represent the information that we're given. Sometimes we're given bad information. And so I can ask three different people at three different government agencies the same question, and sometimes the same agency, and get three different answers because it's not 100%, right? And so with that therein lies the problem. But my answer is going to come from a professional. My answer is going to come from a database or from a set of repeated answers over time. We know that our answers are correct, or we want to make sure that they are as correct as possible and we want to guide you on that path. We are not the expert, but we can connect you to the expert and we can get you good information.
Yeah, that's a good course correction on that. But let me ask a follow-up then. Um, do you see that there's going to be a natural evolution that one day you do have like a public-facing kind of software like Zillow that then is open to the public and able to kind of bring everything together? Is that your ultimate goal, or are you
So
going in a different direction?
I don't know yet, right? I will say I don't think I think we're going to be a portal, but we're going to be a portal for information. But we're not going to be a portal for transactions. I think it's important to keep the transactions separate, but it can be a
Okay.
facilitator of transactions via a separate portal. The realtors have their own portal. The private market is bringing their own portal. There's so many different ways to get information in the market. But what we can do is plug our system under that portal and make sure that information is presented by RealFacts. Rob, you may remember, much of your audience may not, but there was this thing called Carfax, CARFAX.
Yeah,
Most people don't know what a fax is, right? But when I
yes.
was coming up with the name for Real Facts, I mirrored it after that because the marketing of Carfax asked for the Carfax, asked for the Carfax as an identifier of a certificate of value, essentially saying this information is correct. And so that's all I want to be to the market. I want to be the rubber stamp that's saying, hey, we vetted this and we believe this information is correct for whatever that's worth to you, right? But we want to make it mean something, and that's what we're really trying to do.
Like that explanation. Get the real facts.
Exactly.
All right. Um, so as you go there with the real facts, I'm assuming it's proprietary. Um, who was the people or entity who actually developed it and who's sustaining it right now? Do you have like in-house software engineers and coders, or did you outsource that effort?
So we tried to buy local, actually. We've had a couple iterations of the tool, right? And we worked with some local developers and we produced an early iteration of the tool, but we weren't able to break out of some issues that we're having with the database, right? And so to solve that problem, what we did is we ended up hiring a consultant, and the consultant kind of broke down kind of where our journey is. We talked about where we're going to go next and what capacity we wanted to build, what the vision was, and then from there we hired independent professionals to kind of put a team together, and we worked on it from there. So we learned a lot. That you've got to have an expert. I got to say, if you're going to endeavor to create an app, if you're going to endeavor to create any kind of application at scale, hire a professional, right? It's not just a lawyer, but just someone who's done this before, right? Because even just if the product works, there's all kinds of milestones that you have to work into an agreement, structure. There's such a significant learning curve when you're bringing something like this to the market that you have to kind of know. And it's helpful if you just have the conversation with someone who's done it before to kind of guide you. So that really helped me.
Yeah, that's a great point and dovetails into kind of where I was going with this in terms of workforce development. Um, since you're so reliant on this kind of software app or whatever, does Guam give you the level of talent that you need in order to continue to develop and sustain this app? Or do you need something that right now the workforce on Guam is not giving you in terms of talent, skills, expertise, abilities?
100%. In technology, the there's definitely not the talent base that we need locally that lives here, but there's so much opportunity for remote work and independent contractors that we can support an industry like this just by outsourcing. But what we need to do and what we've had to do is once we get the structure in place, then we start working with the local organizations to start building that infrastructure for that talent pipeline because we do know to sustain, we're going to have to cultivate and do that, right? And so we can automate and outsource so much of it, but I mean, at some point you don't have a business
Yeah,
anymore if you don't have boots on the ground, right? So
yeah,
so for us, teaming with with any organization that has an interest in building technological capacity and skill building is of interest to us. So we're partners with we work with the GRAP program, the Department of Labor. We're working with with Samabini and CTE. We're hiring interns
Yeah.
there. We're going out to the market expressing how important and what the practical application of these skills are to teachers so they can come back and enforce that to the students and put them on the path. So man, there's so much opportunity here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But we want, like, this is huge for me because all this technology means job creation, means new opportunity here. And I hate the way people think about Guam, where it's like this place that's devoid of opportunity, because it's not. Because there are people finding opportunity here every day, but it's mindset. It's really
So I had
mindset.
a So I had a purpose behind that because my previous guest was a young gentleman by the name of Jordan Alizaga, and he's kind of like a Guam success story. I call him the model of young Guam excellence. You know, he left from here, graduate of JFK, went to University of Alabama, double major in mathematics, electrical engineering, went on to Georgia Tech, you know, got a degree in computer science, and then went out into Fortune 500, working for them as a software engineer, but now has come back home and wants to bring those skills to Guam. And I'm working with Jordan. And if we're successful, you know, by the end of this year, as early as the end of this year, maybe we have a new cohort of Guam software developers, back end website developers and supporters and stuff like that. So that now there's a pipeline for that, and those people are getting hired. He has a for-profit business as well, so he can use them. But there's a lot of other places on Guam that can use that talent, and we're hoping that this is a new pipeline that start feeding those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And those jobs travel for sure. And the remote work jobs that people can work from anywhere.
Yes,
And so,
exactly.
and also we're coming to a place where all the boomers are going to retire out of the workforce. And there's not a steady pipeline of people coming in here to work. So we're going to have to rely on a lot of automation, a lot of technology moving forward, and we're going to need the infrastructure to support that. So it's going to behoove you to have those skills ready in the next like 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. So having a feeder for that is going to be important for your business as well as other businesses. You know, I really enjoyed hearing everything about the real facts. Is it possible I could get a demo one of these days?
Sure, I can show you right now just a cursory look if you're interested. If you want to do it on the podcast, or I can
Sure,
give.
let's do this real quick, see how this works.
Sure. All right, can you see my screen, Rob?
I can see it now.
All
I can
right.
see the real facts.
All right. So just on its simplest, like let me zoom out of the residential district. We'll stick with commercial. So we won't make anybody mad. Let's see. So here's a landmark that everybody knows, right? Elefant Beach Towers, right? So we just zoom in to the property and you'll see like a parcel map pops up, and then we
Yeah, I'm
click
just past that. That's where I am right now. I'm over at Ganya Beach Condos.
right on. So you can see we pop the tab open and we have like we have all the documents here that we can just kind of pop open and open up if we wanted to.
And who has access to this?
Well, the Guam Association of Realtors and the public right now have access to the the public has a access to a version of the tool where you can view documents, right? You can register on the site and you can look up limited information and view, and you can purchase documents from the system.
Pay
Realtors
for
have access.
access?
What's that?
Do you have to pay for access or do you just
You
pay
don't,
for the documents that
you
you
just
want?
pay for the documents.
Okay.
Right. So if you wanted to pull a document instead of going to land management, you can register at realfactsguam.com. We'll approve you, put in a credit card number, and you can look up documents and purchase any document that we have in our system. If we don't have it, all you need to do is just click a little note here and ask us to get it for you, and we will. And then we'll deliver it to you via email or via the system.
Okay.
So
And the real estate organization, the real estate professionals, do they pay like a subscription to this
the
that
realtors
have
do
all
have
their
a
people?
subscription fee with us as a function of their membership with the Guam Association of Realtors. So they have access to the tool. So what we're doing is we're cultivating the expertise with the realtors to be able to use the tool, and we're developing a certification called a certified real facts professional. And with that, the public knows if they go to a realtor that has that designation, they're skilled in pulling the accurate property information out of the system, and they've been trained to represent that information to refer them to the proper professionals.
That's smart. That's smart.
So with that, I mean, there's other things like so I can zoom to one of the like a lot and see information. If I wanted to, I could let's say if I wanted to send a bunch of postcards to owners in a certain area. If I wanted to do that, I would just go like this, and I would take a map and click, 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 and I'll say search. And then what I'll do is I will export this list. And then we pull up this list of owners and plotted out properties. And now we can take that and send postcards to the owners and say, hey, if you're interested in selling, or hey, this property is going to be rezoned, or whatever your purpose is, the system can facilitate, aggregating information quickly in that way.
That's very nice and very convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, it works really well with other things too. Like say if I wanted to search for properties owned by a specific individual, right? Let's pick a business, Rob.
Cortec.
Okay, Cortec. So let's say I had Cortec coming in. I want to see kind of what properties they own. Well, it would just plot it out, right? And if I wanted to see any of the information about any of the properties Cortex own, I could just look it up in the system and send it out. Does that make sense?
Very,
So
very
we can do
interesting.
asset
Very good.
searches, or I can even look at the docs that we've recorded this month, right? So these are, well, let's look at deeds. Deeds. So we'll do a quick search. So these are all the properties that were transferred this month across the island, right? And if we wanted to, we could zoom into an individual property and say, hey, this is a parental subdivision. So it was subdivided and it was granted to, uh, probably someone building in an unconventional structure. I want to say there's probably going to be a new house that's going to be sold in the back. And then these lots will soon be parentally subdivided. But so, but as an example, right, you can do things that develop market intelligence. So I could look up from this list, I could look up a mortgage, and from that mortgage, I could extract like what potentially someone's qualification could be to acquire additional property. Or I could see, hey, this person has five of this type of building, right? Maybe they want another one. So just to look for patterns in the market, look for um, blue water, I guess, to run to when everyone's fighting for the red. So that's the idea with a system, to be able to leverage it in that way. And so, we can look up any instrument that we have. If it's not there, we can purchase it and put it on the system. And once it's on the system, it's on the system forever. So that allows, in terms of being able to transact. And then from there, if you have a question about the doc, I mean, you just click here on one of these screens and just send us a note, and we will get you whatever information you need, right? So just request a service.
How long did it take to build this software application?
Well, I mean, I look at it as a process, right? I mean, it took, I mean, if you want to talk about it, it took from the time I started at Title Guarantee to the time I left Title Guarantee to the time I'm at Pinpoint to build the current iteration. But it's always, I'm not, I never stop the cycle. We're always developing, we're always improving, and that's technology. And that's why it's very hard for the government to keep up. Because if I decide I want something, I can put a plan in place and get the capital in place and move it without much interference. But with the government, to preserve fairness and equity and to make sure everything's vetted properly, there's a process. And in that process, it drags out. And there's a certain structure that doesn't allow you to be very agile and really puts you in a box. And I just feel with technology, you can't be in a box. You got to perfect your system all the time. So
Absolutely. So when did it hit the market? When did Real Facts hit the market then?
So we started RealFacts in 2022. We launched that product in 2022, and we've been in the market ever since then. But a lot of what we've been doing since 2022 is refining the data. The state of the data on Guam is horrible. And if you have bad data, then you can't develop systems around that data. So we spend most of our time, energy, and resources actually parsing, meaning cleansing the data, making sure spelling errors are redacted. There's consistent names for all the places and types of documents. Even something as simple as, in data entry when it was all manual, so people were typing it in, and some people put DWG for to represent deed. Some people spell deed. But when I try and search for a deed now, because I have all these mixes in there, it's almost impossible. So now I have to
Mm,
standardize every instance of deed that I have. I have to consolidate it into one instance. And that, but moving forward though, that's in reverse. So looking back at patterns becomes more difficult. But now that we've been significantly concerned with data integrity over the last several years, now we have so much flex. So from like 2019 on, ask me anything, man. I mean, it's like the numbers, we have it, right? And so now the machine is building and we're getting, we're feeding more information because now we have this baseline of property records, property owners. Well, what can we get from it?
yes.
We get so many things, but we have a rooted foundation, a verified baseline. And now we use that as structure that we leverage to build up. And now we're focusing on now that we have that structure, now we can apply like AI and do crazy stuff, which is super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Outstanding. All right. So, Ryan, your Data Points podcast, explores all of the challenges and opportunities associated with Guam's housing market. What would you say is the number one challenge inhibiting successful real estate development on Guam? And what recommendations do you have to address that?
Um, the number one challenge is carrying costs for the developer. It's an exercise in futility. Now, because the process to acquire property here and then increase the density so you can properly capitalize it, and then the types of financing and buyers that are available here um, makes it very difficult to do anything at scale and to realize the savings that we need to be able to do things at scale. So really there's no systems in place and there's been no plan ever put in place to deal with those specific market dynamics. And so we keep trying to attack the same problem, the same approach over and over and over again. And it's worked, but now we're in a place where market forces are extremely unpredictable. Supply side issues are significant. You have no real handle on costs, and the next black swan event is like over your shoulder. So there's so much inherent risk, but there's so much demand, and now there's just like this conversation, how do we fix it? And and I just in having these conversations, we talk to these people and we say, man, everyone would love to hear this take. So we just started recording all of it. with the idea that we would build a newsletter around ideas that came from these conversations. So, as an example, we talked about demand for multifamily. And so in demand for multifamily here, well, fair market value rent is 2,100 a month, right? So, okay, if fair market value rent is 2,100 a month, then what am I doing here on multifamily? Why? Because in my real estate experience here, Rob, multifamily has always been less than single family. But because of the rents increasing, now multifamily is becoming more valuable than single family in terms of so there were situations in real estate where there the flip was to buy a duplex and make it into one house, knock down the wall, and it instantly increases the equity by like maybe like 10%, right? So
Hmm.
for a house flipper, I'm looking for duplexes with extended patios that I can enclose and then instantly realize the equity build. But now that's not the case. Now if I'm a developer and I'm going to build a 3,000, a 3,000 square foot house, I'm going to have to charge probably like at least 750, 850,000 for it, right? To account for that carry. I'm going to buy the land. I'm going to carry this for 18 months while I'm permitting, building all this stuff, right? And that now I have an $800,000 house where the mortgage payment is like probably over 4K. And usually the buyer for those 3,000 square foot houses are veterans. They're the ones buying the higher end houses in the market. Those guys aren't buying nothing now, right? Not at double their OHA. So, but
Right.
what if you ask that same veteran if they wanted to buy a fourplex or a duplex or like a triplex, where three of the units are rented out at 2,100 a month, which is a fair market rent for GURA and the military, right? And so with that, I can get 100% financing from the VA, right? And when I leave,
Right.
I got three tenants in there, whether they're military or subsidized, they're in there, or regular market tenants, right? And I only got to replace one. And oh, by the way, in the meantime, my monthly payment's like 1,600 bucks, right? That
Wow.
is a
Yeah.
mindset decision. That is a why decision. That is a future, a generational wealth building decision. And that's not a decision that gets made by people who are going to leave. That gets made by veterans who live here, who serve here, by firefighters, policemen who have served before. These are the people who can buy these fourplexes and take advantage of the wealth building opportunities in the market. But I'm saying it's there in the market because the data shows it. And so what other opportunities are there in the market? And so that's how we solve the problem.
Outstanding. So you kind of alluded to my next question because everybody talks about kind of the housing shortage in Guam, and why is there such a shortage and a challenge in providing enough affordable housing? Um, are there any additional kinds of things that's causing that delta between supply and demand there?
It's really capital. It's really access to lack of access to development capital. And again, that comes from the lack of data, right? The commercial lenders here are extremely conservative. And and that's fair. It's their money. They can choose to be. But there's just not a lot of competition in the market. But there is a lot of demand for non-conventional, non-traditional financing to facilitate some of these developments. And so the conversation that I've been having is like it's really hard to just build something speculatively on your own. It's always effectively a partnership with someone with um, synergy of use. So I'm a 50%. I need a building, but I'm only gonna but for my specific use, but I can afford to build a bigger building and just rent some of it out. The commercial kind of like a big commercial duplex, I guess, or it covers my rent. But maybe I can partner with someone else in the market who has synergy with my business, and we can build a structure that we can inhabit together and own as almost like commercial condos, right? So why is the market not thinking of things like that? Because they're there. Like even with developers, right? Developers want to be able to take a deposit on a house, but Guam law prohibits you from making a deposit non-refundable until a certain benchmark is reached in construction. So how is that for the developer? I can collect deposits, but they're fully refundable. The wind can change, the guy can ask for his money back. So how do we hold people's feet to the fire so there's all kinds of ways to solve that problem, but no one's trying. Everyone's just like, oh, right, won't do it. But it's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to solve the problems. I have all this data. I got all this time to just like think about it. So if you want some ideas, come to us. We got plenty of ideas, right? And but that's the idea. If we bring the data to the table and we start having the conversation, the natural result is transactions and opportunity.
So do you think there's going to be a point when, um, whether it be a result of the buildup or maybe a future where Guam becomes more of a innovation or a tech hub and that attracts more people and more businesses, then that will be the forcing function for people to now seek out these solutions and these ideas. But until then, the status quo is just going to persist?
I just think you have to stop thinking about Guam. I just think you have to start thinking about you and your place in the world, and you just happen to be here, right? But I think you should think of yourself as competitive with the rest of the world because there's never been a time where there's been so many tools and support. I mean, again, you can have an army of AI working for you, and you can do it from
Mhm.
here. You may not know it, but I know it. Google's buying land here. Why?
Yeah,
Ask them, call them up, ask them why they're buying land, right?
yeah.
But but if you have the data, you can do those things. And we're in an era where it's so easy just to reach out and touch someone, right? But most people don't. And that's mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wow, Ryan, I tell you, this has been a great conversation. I loved having the demo too. That was great to drill down into all the aspects of the real facts. Um, this has been an outstanding conversation. Thank you so much for being my guest. To all my audience out there, I know that you learned something off of this because I know I learned a whole lot of this. Um, just want to encourage you to watch for my podcast. Again, they're dropping at the beginning of every week. Don't forget to look for my Innovate column, Pacific Daily News. Look for it at guampdn.com, the first and third Fridays of every month. And remember, whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you so much.